So, Blitzy, what are we going to do for the jokey intro this week?
I don't wanna.
But,
No, I don't wanna.
uh, hello! Welcome to GeekQuery!
Hi, I am InkBlitz.
And I am the Gneech.
And this week we are talking about ways to make Dungeons and Dragons or any tabletop game fun for the DM.
Yep.
Because it is important to actually make it's while it's fun, important for the players to have fun. If you're not having fun, they're probably not having fun either.
Yeah. Yeah, D&D, it's everybody's game, but it's kind of like the Dungeon Master's baby. It's the Dungeon Master creates the world, comes up with all the scenarios, does the prep beforehand. There's a lot more of a mental investment to being the DM than there is to being the player most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of these players who really gets into it. But
yeah,
um,
you're always making all of the characters. You're doing all the voices. Oh my gosh, I did so many voices last night. I don't remember
yeah,
any of them,
yeah,
but there's a lot on the DM. And even though everyone says that it's the player's game, and it is, like, it's this player's story, but it's also your story as well. It's a story of whatever setting, whatever world you're creating, and it's your world. You have to enjoy it.
yeah. And if the DM is not having fun, that's the fastest way to kill a game. Is the DM's just eventually going to be like, I'm not in this anymore. Let's do something else.
Yeah, the players are gonna
Um,
know.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, let's looking at some stuff that makes it, not fun. The first and most obvious thing is Burnout. We had a whole video about Burnout,
We've
which
been there.
we'll add the link down below because that one got a lot of love and feedback from the community, and I think it was useful. And a lot of what we say here is going to sort of echo it, but we're turning more specifically to like how to address that as making the game fun for you. And another option might be, another thing that might be ruining your fun is just the people you're playing with.
Yeah. Do you
You know,
enjoy playing with the people that you're at the same table with? Are they jiving with you? Do they have the same sort of things that you want to do, or do they have different tastes altogether, or are they just kind of jerks?
yeah. I mean, there's it's great to like different kinds of things. D&D is the big tent of fantasy gaming, so you can have the guy who loves orc barbarians over here, and you have the other person over here who wants to play the flowery bard, and somebody who wants to play a furry weirdo with pink mascara. Whatever you want, all of these, all of these archetypes are great, and they can all fit together. Um, but sometimes you have a game that just is very strong in one direction, and some of the players might not be getting what they want out of it, or you might be not getting what you want out of it. And so sometimes if the game is just too different from what you enjoy,
Yeah, especially
there's
if you have like if it's a very silly game, and you're trying to make it serious or a little
mhm,
more serious, or if it's someone's trying to make it very serious and they want a more silly game, or you want a more silly game,
yeah,
those two ideals may not be uh, they may not mesh together. You may
yeah,
be able to get things together. Like in my case, I have a we have a moderately serious game. I'd say moderate to
hmm,
silly, but
yeah,
I took it far more silly with what was a slime village, a village
yeah,
where their main source of income was mining slime from the nearby uh,
yeah,
caves. And it took what was a serious moment of trying to track down uh, why the lighthouse had gone out, and made it a bit serious, a bit silly.
yeah,
But I knew that my players would like it, and they really took to it, and they took things from it. And
yep,
so you have to be able to know what your players want and how far you can go
hmm,
with silly and serious before
yeah.
it
And I mean,
just
it's a,
starts
it's
to
a
not jive.
it's a continuity. It's like a slider you can add to your game, but it's good to know generally the range it should fall in. So like I tend to want more more serious sorts of games versus like Plotline, who wants everything to be very silly,
That's fine.
right?
That's totally
And
fine.
so we have to find an intersection where we're both happy.
Maybe that's
Within
why you like my
games.
games so much, is because it's right down the center.
Yeah, well, that might be. But if you're DMing a game that you want to be very serious and your players are just making wisecracks, making fun of everybody, doing, teaching the goblins to fetch beer or whatever kind of
We haven't gotten to
silliness,
that part yet.
yeah, then that will be a thing that might keep you from enjoying the game as much.
But it also may be the types of players you're with. It may be you might have a problem player who may be making remarks or causing issues that you're not aware of, or you are aware of and aren't able to deal with, and it may be bringing you down. Maybe bringing all of your players down, and maybe bringing yourself and your game down, just because this kind of player is not really, their personality is not meshing.
Yeah, and we're not talking here about difference in taste so much as somebody who's has an actual problem at the table. Somebody who's abusive or a bully or, is creeping on one of the other players or just something like that. That's gonna ruin your fun. B, that's gonna ruin the fun of the other players around you. And if you don't address it, eventually the good players are going to leave, and it's just going to be you stuck with the creep, right? Or multiple.
And that's not fun for anyone. No one enjoys that.
Yeah.
No one wants
so that's the thing where if you have somebody who's really a problem in your group, and there are tons of horror stories all over the internet you can find where people are talking about this, it's something that you need to, it may be painful, it may be awkward, but you need to buckle down and address it, because otherwise either the game is going to die or you're going to end up with just the problem person around, and then the game's going to die because it's just no fun at all.
It may also be, if you're not having fun, it may also be the type of story that you're playing. Is it too intense? Like, are you going to the point where you are spending hours each week to prepare your sessions? 150%. You're spending 6, 7, 10 hours a week just so you make sure you've got all of this set up and going. And you get to the table and you're putting it all on the table, all of the voices, all of the plot lines. Is it too much? And it's getting to the point where you're just running out. Like you're putting all this energy in, and maybe you're not getting it back. And that will definitely start to make the game just
or
enjoyable.
if you're doing a super serious story, are you just like depressing yourself with your own story, ruining your own mood by wallowing in grimness? And the other side is it too frivolous? Is your game too lighthearted, too jokey, too much monster of the week, and there's no depth to it, and you're just not getting anything out of it? There's kind of a fine line, and everybody wants something different. I try to add some depth to my stories. I try to pull depth out of other people's games when I'm a player, or insert my own character development or whatever. But, that's another slider where it can be too much or too little.
Right.
And that's something to watch out for. But there's also just real life reasons why you might not be having fun. Are you literally depressed? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you going through a hard time at work? Or have you been in lockdown for a pandemic for a year? All kinds of
there are external reasons as well for you to not be enjoying the game. Like we use these games a lot of the time for escape, but at the same time, it's like you still have to deal with your real life. Like if you're not eating well, if you're not sleeping well, if you're in the middle of a raging pandemic that won't stop.
Yeah.
Those sort of things will drag you down. For instance, I had the hardest time getting back into Everkeep for 6-8 months. I could not focus on any creative exploits during this pandemic. Well,
yeah. I mean, as a player in that game, it was rough to watch because I could see you were frustrated by wanting to come back to it and just not having anything. And I've been there as a DM where I'm like, I want to run, but God, I just can't.
It's just not coming. And sometimes you just have to admit it's just not going to happen. You have to give yourself a chance to take a break and not think about it.
Yeah.
But
also, finding ways to make it fun again will help you get through that.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, there's lots of different ways you can bring in fun. One of the big ways is uh, fill the game with things you like. Fill the game with things that you enjoy. So things like Blitzy's Slime Village. That was Blitzy was like, I like this idea. I want it to be in my game.
I found it in a book and I extrapolated.
Yeah. If you like a lot of role playing, then put in a lot of role playing. And in my Burning Coast game, we were just doing random monster encounter, random monster encounter, random monster encounter, random monster encounter, because they were hex crawling their way across the jungle, and I was getting bored.
I was getting a little bored too.
Yeah, so I was like, I want some more character interaction. So I brought in a new NPC. I lifted Bag of Nails and Copper Bell and Hooded Lantern, who are just these NPCs who have like a paragraph in the module, and I fleshed them out and I added them to the game, and so now Bag of Nails is this important factor in the game, which he wasn't at all in the
he was nothing.
module. Yeah, in the module he's an encounter. In our game, Bag of Nails is like this oracle prognosticator.
We're not sure. We're not
relief.
sure if he's an oracle or if he's just completely off his tail with whatever he's been smoking.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah,
both.
and that was all put in there because I wanted there something that I would get more enjoyment out of than just you fight these dinosaurs, you fight these zombies, you fight these giant frogs, you know.
And that's really what kind of brought me back to Everkeep was realizing that even though it's your story and Everkeep started as sort of a sandboxy-ish sort of story, it's like I need to enjoy this. I need to put in characters that I like. I need to put in storylines that I like. And I need to put in things I like, which I like magic weapons and items. I threw them a dozen magic items to pick from.
Yeah.
And
that was a lot.
But I enjoyed it. And also sometimes you need to dig into it. Maybe something what's wrong is not what you think it is.
Yeah, that's a thing that's in any kind of like emotional or therapeutic setting. One of the first things that you go over, I get this from my life coach training, is what the problem that the person brings to you may not be the real problem. What you get on the surface is usually the symptom and not the real issue. And that's something that was probably also going to be true of if you're not having fun with the game. Well, why aren't you having fun with the game? If it's, I'm bored because we're doing all monster encounters, that's a symptom.
Right.
But what is the underlying cause? Well, the underlying cause is, for me, I like character interaction. I like world building. I like stuff like that. And we're not doing that. Right.
Right.
So that was how I figured out to diagnose that problem and address it.
And also that might also go towards, like, if you have a problem player, the problem might not be that they're actually angry with what's going on, or that they might not, get along with your group. They might have something going on in the background in their life, which is currently dragging them down. Now, you are not a psychiatrist, unless you are,
yes.
In which case,
yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes.
But you're probably not hired to be a person's psychiatrist, and you should not be dealing with their problems that way. But
yeah.
It's good to know about.
Therapy thing is probably, we could do a whole other episode about that too. But it can be useful, but it's not a therapeutic tool unless you are a trained therapist using it that way. So
you're probably not.
Probably not. No. The classic, what we talked about in the Burnout video of take a break. If you're just not enjoying it, don't bang your head on something that's supposed to be fun, right?
We all like enjoying D&D, and especially now, since D&D is some things we only have, the only thing we have to look forward to. But take a break from it.
Yeah. Let somebody else run, do a one-shot that's very different from what you're doing right now. If you play, if you have a heavy D&D game, play something light and silly like Toon or Teenagers from Outer Space. Or if you've been mainlining manic silliness for a long time, try digging into something that's a little darker. Pull out Call of Cthulhu and
Oh, it's
I
extremely
mean, you can
dark.
play
That's going
Beer
off
and
the deep
Pretzels
end a
Call of
little bit.
Cthulhu, but yeah, but usually Call of Cthulhu is a much more in-depth role-playing game with it's around horror and losing your sanity and all that jazz. And
Definitely
you
doing
don't
that.
even, yeah. At some point, you might just be like, you know what? Let's step away from role-playing games. Let's play Uno this week.
Let's play Jackbox. Like
Yeah.
whenever we don't feel like making it, like if the 4 DMs don't feel like running,
Yeah.
we play Jackbox. It's
Or if there's a schedule conflict and half the group is not there, the other half, well, we'll play You Don't Know Jack or
right.
whatever.
It happens.
Yeah. And it's a good time to just sort of get out of the context that's bugging you.
And as players, there are things we can still do to really help our DMs and make it more fun for them as well.
Yeah.
One thing that we always do that I really like is that we thank the DM. The DM has been spending, and they spent 3 hours creating this world for us, and then they've spent who knows how much longer preparing for
doing
that
the prep work and
thank them,
wrangling maps and tokens, and
let them know that they're appreciated, and a little bit of appreciation goes a really long way.
Yeah, and especially if it's like not prompted. We have the sort of automatic, the session ends, everybody thanks the DM. But then for the previous session, we had an email chain going on, and Surfy just dropped this thank you again for running. I've missed this game, etc. And he was sending it to you, but I
Right.
could tell that was a kind of thing. If I had received something like that as a DM, I would have been like, oh, and I have in the past. It's thing
it's the first time that I've received something like that, and I'm sorry that next week is going to be another pause after that, but I have to build a city.
Yeah. The other great thing you can do as a player is take notes. Make a note of what's going on in the game, and you can share with the rest of the group. We have a couple of us who tend to do that, but even if you just have your own notes, when a DM pulls out something and you go, wait, we did this, flip.
Yeah.
I remember this is the Minotaur that you vaguely alluded to 3 sessions ago. That makes the DM feel like you've dug into the world, you're getting into it, and
it helps the DM too, because I have often just said something off the cuff, either a name or a thing, and my group remembers it because Gneech here takes notes and writes up the notes and sends them to the entire group afterwards. So that helps me as a DM, because I sure as heck don't remember what I did. But they might come back to it later on. Like the blacksmith. I don't remember his name. Still don't remember his name. It wasn't in the notes, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But they still remembered it, and that still is going to help me going forward.
Yeah. And having these notes helps build the world, because it will be consistent from one week to the next of, oh yeah, the tavern burned down, and it's still burned down, 2 weeks later, they're not going to go to the tavern because it burned down.
It burned down.
Yeah, and everybody remembers that it burned down because somebody took notes,
Right.
And just really, as the DM wants the players to have fun, and in a lot of ways, the best way the players can make it fun for the DM is get engaged and have fun. Do the thing,
And as much fun as you're having as a player, remember that you probably want the DM to be having fun too. So anything that you can do to make it easier on the DM, such as helping with initiative. There are some players that will help with initiative, unless you're playing Roll20, in which case you don't really need to.
Tracking stuff, or making notes, like I said, or little things like knowing how your character works, so you don't have to look up stuff while the DM is trying to keep the game moving. Just all kinds of stuff like that. So
have a dedicated rule looker upper person.
Rule looker upper. That's the group rules lawyer.
Rules lawyer. Have a group rules lawyer. There you go.
Yeah. And when all else fails, whether the player or the DM, just relax, chill out, Remember that everybody's there to have a good time. As long as you do your best to make it easier for everybody else to have a good time, they're going to be doing the same for you, and everybody will be happier. And that's what it's about.
And remember that it's just a game, and you should really just relax.
So, let's talk about what we want to talk about next time.
Next time. So this is a little bit contentious between us. Magic items, threat or menace?
Yeah. So magic items is a recurring thing, and I'm not a fan of magic items. I don't mind there being a few.
I love magic items.
Yeah, I like people to have like a signature item. Frodo has Sting and his mithril shirt. I'm fine with that. King Arthur has Excalibur. I'm fine with that. Thor has his hammer. I'm fine with that. But then you get to D&D, where everybody's got this golf bag of different types of weapons so that they can bypass different types of damage resistance.
We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. I want to play a swashbuckling pirate. I don't want to play somebody who's wearing slippers that hang them from the ceiling while they throw fireballs, right? So I have all kinds of opinions about how magic items fit into D&D, and I know that I'm an outlier. But I feel like that there is value in focusing on the character's abilities versus the stuff they're carrying around, and I'd like to get into that. We also have the topic of prep. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about making it fun for yourself as a DM. How do you do prep? How do you make it easier on yourself? How do you prepare things to have fun and not totally bog yourself down? What are some resources?
How do you build a world? How do you build a campaign? How do you build a session? They're
oh gosh, that could be a multi.
Yeah,
that might be a many episode one.
Yeah, well, they're all things worth considering.
And then also one we got here is how to be a good player.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a little bit about it, but there's a lot more to it that we could go into. So, how to be a good player is helping keep the games going. How to make an interesting character. How to make an effective character. Almost nobody wants to play a character who can't succeed at doing what their character is supposed to do.
But it's going to happen.
Yeah, how do you deal with that, and where do you go with it? So please, if one of those topics or some other thing would interest you, please leave a comment about it. We love to talk to people. We love to hear from people.
And if this video helped you, please leave a like.
Yeah, the whole YouTube thing of please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. We're corny about it, but it is true that it would help us reach more people and have a larger discussion. So we're real into it. And as always, I would like to plug my Patreon because that's how I make my living. There's a link down in the description. You can get access to my art, my writing, videos. I am planning to build out my video presence a little more in the upcoming months, so there will be a lot of discussion of that there.
And I would like to plug my Twitch, where I play gaming several times a week, either with Beat Saber.
A really, really great Beat Saber game with his Dutch Angel Dragon avatar. I love that. So
I have a sort of focus in VR and trying to lean more into VR stuff, but it's how I keep sane.
Yeah, and you can go in there and request him to ridiculous songs and take all kinds of challenges, and it's very cool. And that's pretty much it for this week, I think. And so we will be back in a week or two with another topic, hopefully chosen by you guys.
Yeah.
And we'll see you then.
Thank you for listening.
Take it easy.
And out.
Yes.